Hey everyone, this is Leanne from Of Love and Shiplap and the founder of That Tutorials and More. Please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel so you never miss out on any new videos, and check the video description for a link to the That Learning Library app. Inside of our app, you can access all of our free tutorials as part of the free basic subscription plan. They're easy to find in our content libraries, so that's nice and organized for you. And you can choose to subscribe for access to exclusive content, including all of our different master classes and access to help, support, and sharing communities. In this tutorial, I am going to be showing you how to sublimate flip-flops. I have not seen too many people talk about these, but they honestly were a lot of fun to do. So let's go ahead and turn things around. We'll get a closer look at them and we'll get our measurements and talk more about how to print, press, and profit this item. Here's a look at our sublimation flip-flops. Now you can see that they kind of come, so you can pop them out. They're relatively thick. These are not like thin, cheap types of flip-flops. And they have nice heavy-duty straps. Let's go ahead and unpack it. You could absolutely leave the flip-flops in here when you press. If you wanted to do a design that you just, like a digital paper that you just sized this whole size, or you can use the template and pop them out, that's what we're gonna do today. Mostly because I want the design that we're using to lay out a certain way. So these ones are a large on Johnson Plastics Plus website. That's more of a men's large than a woman's large. We want to go ahead and get our measurements just so we can make sure that our template is sized accurately. Now for these, we're looking for the highest points. So from where this toe line is down. So we're looking at about 11 1/4, and of course we'll go a little bit bigger just so we have full bleed. And then for our width, the same thing. We're looking for the widest part. So we have 11 1/4 by 4 3/8. Let's go ahead and set this up in Affinity Designer. I am working in Affinity Designer 2.0 on a Windows PC. If you're using the Mac version, or if you're using version 1, your studio interface may look a little bit different than mine, but the steps that we will follow will be the same. The first thing you want to do is download our flip-flop template from the Of Love and Shiplap website. You can download that for free. This is in the Affinity format, and you will unzip that file and save the .af template file into your designated folder for Affinity templates that you have linked with the software. Next, you will come to File and then New or New Document and select the Templates tab from your Document Setup panel. This is where you can find the folder which you should have linked with Affinity Designer. If you have not linked your folder yet, you can do that by selecting the Add Folder option. It's an icon in version 2, but I believe in version 1 it just said Add Folder, the words. I recommend saving this folder somewhere on a cloud drive that's easy to locate and easy to reconnect should you get a new computer or something happens with your software and you have to reinstall it. Whatever could potentially happen. It just makes life a lot easier if it's on a cloud drive or an external drive of some sort. So anytime you download a template, you save the .af template file into that folder, and then it appears in the software. We're going to select our flip-flop template and click Create. Now you'll notice that we have print lines and bleed lines. The first thing that we want to do is select one of those bleed lines and just double check the measurements that we have and make sure that it is a little bit bigger than the measurements that we got when we measured our flip-flop. This is, but if you needed to resize this, you would click and drag and select the two of them and you would manually enter in your resized measurements and then just repeat the process for the other side as well. So you can see that we have our print line, which is in red, and our bleed line, which is in blue. Our print line is going to be the boundary for what is expected to actually show up on the flip-flop, but we want to have our design clipped into the bleed line so that we can have a nice filled finish design. You can choose to use any type of digital paper, graphics, photographs that a customer has given you, something that you've designed. Really, the sky is the limit in terms of this. There's lots of great aesthetics that work depending on who your target audience is for your flip-flop sales. For this, I'm going to be using a graphic that was sent to me. It was picked for this project. This is not an item that I am selling. It's just something we're doing as a tutorial, but this is a good reminder that you cannot sell anything that uses any type of copywritten or trademarked type of elements, whether that is characters, character renditions, specific sports teams logos, and so on, without a licensing agreement from the holder of that intellectual property. So you would need to reach out to specific NFL teams directly to use football logos. You need to get properly licensed for that sort of thing. Just a reminder as I pull in this graphic. You're going to bring in your graphic by selecting the place tool or place image tool, which is this little photograph icon in your tools panel, or you can come to file and then place. So I'm selecting a Dragon Ball Z illustration that someone has put together. And when you see that downward arrow with the portal, you can then click and drag that across your canvas. Now I like to have everything centered to start, so I'm going to go ahead and get this centered over top of my document. I know that it's centered because I see the red line at the top, middle, and bottom, and the green line through the middle on the vertical axis. If you're not seeing those lines when you have your graphic selected, just make sure that you have this snapping guides activated by selecting that magnet icon. I want to right-click on this layer and select Duplicate. Next, I'm going to drag each one of these into our bleed line layers to clip them. Select the first layer, hold your cursor down on the image, and then drag it so that your cursor is touching the name of that bleed line layer, and it will clip inside. And then repeat. Click and hold. When your cursor is touching the layer name, release. You'll see these little arrows appear, and this is clipped inside. You want to select, open those little groups, and select the actual layer that you brought in, your digital paper, your photo, whatever it is. And this is where you can kind of adjust it on your flip-flop so that you can kind of get more of what you want printed on the flip-flop. So I'm going to kind of nudge this over just a little bit. And what we're paying attention to is where this red line is, because what's within the red line is what's going to ultimately show up on the flip-flop. And the rest of that is just bleed to make sure that we do get a full print all the way around. So I think that's pretty good. We're going to do the same thing on the other layer. I'm just going to move it in the other direction. And the idea is that this way, when these are side by side, it's going to look a little bit more cohesive and like they go together. I think this one I'm just going to move over just a little bit more. Okay. So once you're ready, you then are going to come to your layers that say print line, and you are going to click on the eye or the circle to hide those layers because we don't need those. And on your bleed line layers, you are going to come to this open circle in your color tab, make sure the open circle is on top, and choose the little tiny circle at the bottom there for no fill. So you should just see your filled template. Next, click and drag across your canvas to select those two layers and double check the transform panel for the size measurements. This is how much this grouped together, what the size is. So we have just about 10 inches by just about 12 inches. we're using that information to help us determine what size page we are going to print on. Now you could print this on 11 by 17 paper. That would be my recommendation for this project. This particular size, even one at a time, is not going to fit on a letter size page, even if you try to rotate it. So you will need a printer that prints at least 11 by 17. Next, we want to open up a new document that is in the page size we plan on printing on and the orientation which it feeds into our printer. So come to File, New or New Document. And in this case, like I said, 11 by 17 is going to be the page size of choice. I have one that's 12 by 17, so I'm going to choose that because I'm using rolled paper. So most of you would be using the 11 by 17, which is up here as Ledger. And you will have that selected in portrait orientation because that is how your paper is fed into your printer. For those who are using the Epson SureColor F570 Pro for sublimation, like I am, you can choose to set up an 11 by 17 page, or in my case, I'm just going to use this 12 by 17 preset. And we want ours to be horizontal because the roll of paper is 17 inches wide, and then the printer will cut the paper wherever we're telling it to cut it, which in this case would be 12 inches. So just keep in mind that your document should always look how your paper is going to be fed into the printer. Our DPI should be set to 300. Underneath the color panel, we want our color format to be set to RGB/8 for sublimation printing, and our color profile should be sRGB IEC 61966-2.1. This is the most up-to-date color profile for the color format RGB/8, but if you are using a Mac and facing color discrepancy issues, then try out Adobe RGB 1998. That is an older profile which tends to work a little bit better for Macs if they're having an issue. I always like to have the transparent background selected, and in terms of margins, I like to have them deselected and have bleed set to 0. When all of your settings are ready, click Create. Come back to that previous tab that we had and make sure that you have those two layers selected. Right click and copy. Come to the new page tab that we have, right click and paste. Now next you can go ahead and align them on your page how you need to. I like to always have things centered, but if you don't want to end up with too much wasted space, you can import other designs and add them to the side if they fit by using that place image tool. And you can do that anytime you're printing, or you can save those little half sheets if they're the right size. You can save them for nozzle check and things like that. So I'm going to go ahead and center this, make sure I'm not too close to my edges. Good and good. And we can actually rotate this clockwise. So I'm going to choose my rotation tools, rotate that group just like that. This way I can be sure that nothing is going to get cut off on the edges. But it is centered on my page, so we are ready to send it to print. Select File, Print. Choose your printer from the drop-down menu. In this case, we are using our Epson SureColor F570 Pro. Next, you're going to click on the Properties tab. And if you're using a converted sublimation printer, this will be where you choose all of your color correction settings, your ICC profile, any of those special settings that you have are chosen in your printer properties dialog box. Now your dialog box likely looks different than mine because this is the dialog box for the Epson SureColor F570 Pro. The dialog box looked different when I had a Workforce 7710. So just kind of keep that in mind that yours might look a little bit different. You can see some of our older videos where we used the Workforce printer, and that has the more traditional looking dialog box for Epson converted printers. For those who are using the SureColor F570 Pro, you are going to come to document size and click on settings and make sure that you have this set to the page size that you're printing on. As you can see, I have all kinds of presets in here. So I'm going to choose that 12-inch by 17-inch roll. Always double check that this little A piece of paper over here is correctly orientated for how we are printing. Click OK. Come down to source and select your source. In this case, that is rolled paper. And our paper width is the 17-inch option, and our medium type is textile. I do not need a print preview because there's one on the Affinity dialog box. So once I have all my settings ready, I'm just going to click OK, double check my print preview box right here. Everything looks great, and click OK again to send this off to print. Okay, so we are going to want to put blowout paper underneath our transfer, or underneath our substrate and our transfer. And then we'll go ahead and attach our flip-flops to the transfer. Actually, they go this way. That one, and then that one. So we're going to center it onto our transfer. Double check all around. Looks very good. And we want to, of course, apply some heat tape to secure this. You could choose to use adhesive spray as well. I personally just prefer heat tape for this sort of thing. So anytime I'm doing something like this, I always rub it against the top of the substrate, down the side, and then onto the paper. I find that doing it this way just ensures you have the most secureness. You are most secure when it comes time to flip this over. So I'm going to go ahead and add a few just all around. If you guys do not have this heat tape dispenser, or it's just a tape dispenser, but it cuts the pieces. I absolutely love this tape dispenser. I don't think I really talk about it most of the time, but it is fantastic. It is available on Amazon. You can check out our Amazon storefront to see. I know that I've saved it in there. Basically anything that we have used in tutorials that I stand by, that I know is a good product, is in there. There are, of course, many more items available on Amazon, but unless we've tested them, we are not going to recommend them. And I'm sure you guys hear my phone going off. It's my grandma. There's no emergency happening, just so you know, but it's all the way across the room. Okay, so there's one, and we'll just slide that one over, get this one. And once again, get this nice and centered. I've had these flip-flops on my want to-do list for some time now, so I'm definitely excited that we are getting to them. We have so many blanks here, you guys. I'm hoping that you guys will like our new format of doing themed weeks, just because honestly, it's more practical. A lot of items can be done for all different times of year, so it's a little bit harder to do things that are like seasonal / holiday based, when, except for Christmas, of course, when there's so much overlap. So I'm hoping that you guys will be pretty thrilled with how we're changing things around. This is beach week that we're doing, but again, like flip-flops are great for weddings and things like that as well. Any kind of vacation, the cruise life, we'll talk more about that. Okay, so once you have everything secure, just go ahead and flip them over. Put your other piece of blowout paper on top. We're gonna push this on back and press these for 60 seconds at 400 degrees with firm pressure. So while this is counting down, let's talk about all the things that you can do with flip-flops. Now, I know that for some of us, custom flip-flops is probably not on our must-own preference or must-own list of items. I know for me it certainly isn't, but they are in fact very popular. They are popular as dancing shoes are an item that a bride and groom or bridal party might choose to wear, so that's a great market to focus on. They are a popular option to market for people who do a lot of cruises, because they often want to wear like matching shirts, hats, bags, sandals, things like that. They're also great for any time you're doing some sort of celebration of a milestone in life, you know, graduate, retirement, things like that. If someone likes flip-flops, you can find a way to incorporate these. Now, of course, flip-flop. Let's get that pushed all the way back. There we go. Now, of course, flip-flops are not everyone's cup of tea, but assuming that they are, in fact, for your audience, this is a great option for different purposes. I'm going to check this just before I peel anything off. Okay, it looks good. Always a good idea, anytime you're doing something that you've never done before, to check it before you fully remove the transfer. Kind of get you guys more centered there. And all you do is just peek at it. You just peek at it from the edge before you shift anything. That way, if you do have to press it for another 10 seconds or something like that, you are able to. You haven't disheveled your whole transfer. Now, typically, if you can see the design bold through your paper, assuming you're not using the thicker papers. If you're using those thick papers, this won't happen for you, or it won't be as visible for you. But for the thinner papers, the ones that I'm usually recommending, when you can see it bold through this, it's usually a good indication that you got a great transfer. And we did, which is good because I only bought one pair of these sandals. I will tell you, for those of you who are beginners, that the more you do this, the less errors you tend to have when you're trying out new items. That is one of the beautiful parts. You start to understand all the little variables that can impact everything, and it just makes trying new things a lot easier. Now, I'm not saying I never screw anything up these days, but honestly, it's not too often. Okay. So there is our sublimated flip-flops. I am absolutely in love with these. This is so fun. Okay, we still need to attach our little, our straps. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. These are cool. These need just a minute to cool down. So we'll meet over on the workbench. So all you're gonna need is a screwdriver in order to be able to insert your straps. Now, I want you to see something. Okay, I'm hoping I can get on the camera. See that little tiny R there? You're gonna see that there is an L and an R on this part of the strap, the part that has the texture. There is also an L on the bottom on these little nubs. The camera is having a really hard time picking it up. When I turn it a little bit, I think you can see it. You will see it more in real life. So what this is, the L and R that's on the top lets you know which sandal the strap goes to. But then that little L that's inside is letting you know that this is going in the middle part. So the way that these should fall is like this. This is how the strap should fall on the sandals, not like this. So the textured side should be up. So when you want to put your strap in, all you do is push your piece into that hole. You're going to get it about halfway in, and then just use a screwdriver to push it the rest of the way in. And then I had a little piece I pushed through. It should be flush there on the bottom. So let's go ahead and do the other one. So again, we're going to push it into that hole best we can get it in. Make sure we have it facing the right way. And then use our screwdriver to really push it through that hole. This does take a little bit of elbow grease. we want it to have a tight hole. We don't want to stretch it out too much because then the straps won't stay. We need to have the straps stay through being worn by our buyer. All right, so same thing on the other one. Again, we're gonna push that on down in. Now I think you could use pliers as well, but I think that using pliers runs the risk of stretching out those holes, which is what we're trying to avoid. We wanna make sure that these are tight, again, so that our straps don't come out while someone is walking them. If you've ever worn these kind of flip-flops, you know that that is literally the worst. It is literally the worst when your strap comes out. I would say that this is probably not the project for anyone with weak hands. Man, we are struggling. All right, I'm gonna do the other one first. So get it pushed on in, and then use your screwdriver to push it the rest of the way. There we go. Make sure we have it all twisted just right. Like I said, it definitely takes a little bit of elbow grease there. Oops. Sorry guys, I'm hitting the camera with my arm. We're almost there. Ah, fantastic. All right. There you have it. Those are our sublimation flip-flops. A little bit of work there to get those straps in, but honestly, really fun project, and has a variety of potential customers that would be interested in buying this type of item. You can find the links for everything we used in this tutorial in the description for the video. Be sure to check out the Sub That Learning Library app to access the marketing guide for this and so much more. Thank you so much for joining us and have a great rest of your day.